Despite our best efforts and the efforts of others, disparities continue to rise. We need a new approach, a new way of looking at things.
We had a growing sense that our investments were not having much impact in the lives of the most vulnerable people in our communities. And so as a result, we started a process of listening, deep listening campaign. One of the things we heard back loud and clear from that process was that a lack of access to economic opportunity.
There is a segment of our city that's being left behind, and we must do something about it.
What would our neighborhoods look like if we didn't just think about rebuilding them with brick and mortar, but we built them with relationships, with love and compassion?
There's no real democracy unless we have economic democracy.
This is multi-layered, and it requires collaboration, that no one initiative or effort is going to be able to change the way that we are looking at economic development and wealth creation.
There's something exciting happening in cities today. This work is coming out of silos and beginning to touch local government. We think this is creating a flashpoint where this work could really begin to go to scale.
I'm excited about the work that we're doing in partnership with the Democracy Collaborative and looking and focusing on our most challenging neighborhoods and seeing what type of resources do we need to bring to bear to them where they live at in order to empower themselves to lift themselves out of poverty.
We've been working with the Democracy Collaborative now for the past couple of years and adopted a framework. Our framework also looks at culture as a key driver for community wealth. You can't continue to create economic strategies and models that don't acknowledge the culture of the people in those communities.
We need it rooted in values and in people. Not just place, but the people who live there, and the very specific needs, geniuses, skills, productive capacities of the people who live there.
Part of this work starts with a inspiring radical imagination to look at the current system that we're in, both the political economy and the political institutions, and how they have, in fact, impacted on contributing to the underdevelopment of certain communities, particularly communities of color.
Inclusion and equity. We truly believe that if you don't have equity and inclusion over the long term, your community is not going to thrive. And so social justice matters, inclusion matters, paying attention to those who have historically been left out of economic opportunity is critical to long-term success.
Rather than think that we can just develop a large regional economy and the benefits of that will trickle down to those most in need, community wealth building focuses intentionally on those who've been excluded from the economy and how to move them into productive work.
We know, as advocates and people that do this work and support the work, that the worker cooperative model is important to stemming the surge of that income inequality.
We're doing food co-ops, we're doing laundry co-ops, we're doing co-ops throughout the city in different areas as part of the economic development strategy.
The idea that people will share the wealth, share decisions, and share in the assets of a business, not only does it help to tackle the issues of income inequality, it just makes people feel more vested.
The idea of collaboration. We really believe any success in moving communities, moving economic opportunity requires elected officials, nonprofit organizations, businesses, and other actors to be working in concert to actually create that change.
For me, this has been the greatest thing in my career because I now work with foundations, my anchor partners, my other government entities in the area, and we sit around and we brainstorm, we figure out how can we do these economic inclusion projects? How can we have more social impact? What can we do? Suddenly we found that that power of working together means that we can get so much more done.
We have to start talking about community wealth building as a new framework, and because really we are pushing against a very long-held paradigm of how you do development.
What are some of the drivers of community wealth building? We see this as really a systems approach. It's a new paradigm of economic development, an emerging paradigm. And it starts with place. You know, it's not rooted in the ethereal world of finance, but love of place, a particular place, and beginning to build the assets of that place.
Don't chase smokestacks. Yes, if somebody wants to come and locate in your community, that's fine. But the real growth in terms of an economy and what keeps it local and what keeps the wealth within the community is developing it yourself.
If public dollars are spent on a project, there's got to be a commitment by the developer and the people who'll be running that project thereafter for local hiring.
The power of anchor institutions. Seems obvious, but getting big institutions that are permanently based in these communities that we care about to really turn their economic power to creating more opportunity for the communities that have been struggling in these places is something that's extremely important.
What we've been doing really is trying to get the institutions, the anchor institutions, to either make sure that people are making a living wage, that there are jobs that are there for residents, and that they're also contracting with minority businesses and women-owned businesses. But if they're not going to do those, that they actually find another way to contribute.
Community wealth building focuses on preventing leakage of money from our cities. In many of our cities, our large place-based anchor institutions are spending billions of dollars every year on goods and services, but a great proportion of that, very often the great majority, is being spent out of the city.
What we've been doing, the work that we've been doing with the Democracy Collaborative is actually looking at those anchor institutions and asking them to look at their procurement and what do they outsource? What do they purchase from outside of our community that could be built or purchased in our community by residents or made by residents that live in one of our most challenged neighborhoods.
What we've learned about building community, building cities, is that you have to have and see the intersection between community engagement, between leadership, and community wealth building. And it's with those three components, that's when you have sustainable communities.
I think the biggest highlight of all was the passion and the energy of the panelists. And you could actually feel their commitment to the mission. And certainly for our times, it's a very important one.
We have a lot of work to do. I mean, there are powerful forces that are seeking to prevent change, and only by discussing issues and working together in different collaborations are we going to be able to find the opportunity to reverse some of the corporate interests that are now invading our communities for greed.
I think I'm going home with a validation that partnerships and really being intentional about coalitions and collaborations as a way to change systems is really important.